Welcome to Before You Say I Do. My name is Carter, and if you're watching, this is Citi TV, and if you're listening, it's 97.3 Citi FM. So you already know what the show is about, but if you're joining us for the first time, this is that show where we discuss every conversation that you actually need to have as a couple before walking down the aisle. So we've talked about, financial planning, we've talked about communication skills, but today it's about healthcare and family planning. Let's go on a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to be speaking to our expert, and you know why you need to have these conversations before walking the aisle. We'll be right back. Welcome to Before You Say I Do. So before I left, I said I was going to introduce our expert that we're going to be having this conversation with. And if you're just joining and wondering, what is the conversation for today? Today we're going to be talking about family planning and health matters. So these are some of the conversations that you need to be having before you walk down the aisle with that special person. And joining me in the studio is Dr. Promise Sefoga, a consultant obstetrician, gynecologist and fertility specialist at Shape Healthcare Specialist Medical Center, and he's also a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Chris.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks
You're
for
welcome
having
to the
me.
show.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah. All right, so Doc, two people want to get married.
Yeah.
And we're telling them they need to have this conversation about family planning.
Yeah.
So what is family planning?
Good. So it's a fantastic idea that two people wanting to share the rest of their lives together talk about family planning. Mm-hmm. And basically we say family planning is the ability of a couple to have the desired number of children mm-hmm. they can adequately and properly take care of, mm-hmm. as well as space them out to the best of their well-being, mm-hmm. health, and capabilities. Right.
So why is it important to have this conversation?
So it's important for so many reasons. For the purposes of the couple, it's important so that the woman can plan her life. Because the woman needs to know, yes, let's discuss that we're going to have 2, 3, 4 mm-hmm. children at these intervals. In between, the woman needs this time to regain her energy, needs time to go to school, to catch up some professional mm-hmm. advancement. Mm-hmm. So it's that important for the woman. Medically, it's healthy for the woman to plan so that if it's agreed that we're going to have 3 children, then at 2 or 3 year intervals, the woman's body is able to regain the health and the well-being in between. Because if you have the children too quickly back to back, it's so much of a drain on the woman's body. The body ages a lot faster and tends to have long-term implications, mm-hmm. And then it also benefits the child mm-hmm. because if you have one child that's well planned, we have the tendency to be able to take greater care of that child.
Right.
Make sure they grow a bit, they're able to understand a few things before they go to school. When their immunity is already a little built up, they don't pick up a lot of the cough and cold too fast when they go to school too frequently, and then they grow and mature a little bit before another one comes. But the child is less than 1 year, another pregnancy is on the way. The mother is struggling with her own pregnancy, mood changes, hormonal issues, cannot take good care of the child. She'll have to stop breastfeeding, and the child hasn't had enough of breast milk, and all of those.
So you leave this one and then start breastfeeding.
Exactly, and so that doesn't really go well for the child. Mm-hmm. Again, if the children don't get spaced adequately, it affects their bonding as well as their own development. Okay. Now, in Ghana, 1 out of every 2 pregnancies just happen. They are not planned, and that is of concern. So it's important that we have this discussion. So every couple, or before you say I do, should have this discussion and have the agreement as much as you can. And then there are ways of making sure it happens once we've planned it.
All right, so Doc, I'm just to divert a bit. You know, there are some people that say, oh, I have the money now, but we don't really have time. So we're just going to, give birth back to back to back to back, and then, we'll rest later. Is that healthy?
I mean, just having the money is not enough, because it depends if the woman doesn't have the advantage of age on her side. That would be understood, because we would wish that every woman would have finished having her children before she turns 35,
right,
as much as possible. But for one reason or the other, and we get to see now that a lot of women, because of pursuing career, academic advancement, all of that, they tend to delay childbirth until a little later, which is not a good thing. Childbirth cannot wait indefinitely. You can always go back and pursue your career, yes. And so, because the advantages of having your kids earlier is a woman's eggs are most fertile and of the best quality between the ages of 20 to 30.
Right.
And the reason is because the woman is born as a baby girl with the eggs pre-packed in her ovaries already.
Right.
And so as you're growing, the eggs are aging, and then a lot of changes tend to happen, including some, we call it chromosomal changes that can lead to the formation of abnormal babies, which is why we wish that before age 35, as much as possible. So if it's a situation where the woman hasn't got the age on her side, we could understand that. But if the woman has the age, then there's no need to want to rush them back to back to back. It rather drains the woman and also has some negative impact on the babies.
Oh, okay. So what health screening or checkup should people consider before trying to start a family?
I mean, so it takes a healthy woman and a healthy man to make a healthy family, to make a healthy couple, make a healthy pregnancy, healthy babies, right? So you should all be in a good state of health. And we are not very good at doing the regular health checks. On the part of the man, you need to even know what your blood pressure readings are. You need to know your blood group. You need to know if you have any infections that could be sexually transmitted. That does not preclude you from marrying, but then you may need some medications or some precautions so that you keep yourself and your partner safe. You need to know about your cholesterol levels and your blood pressure and the state of your heart and your blood sugars. Because a lot of these things do not have any obvious physical signs for you to know that, this man has high blood pressure, high cholesterol.
It's not written on the face.
It's not, and that's why we call them silent killers. And so you don't get very unpleasant surprises. A few months after you've married, something else happens before we see your blood pressure is in the sky, your blood cholesterol is too high. No. And on the part of the woman, the same thing, as well as the blood group. And we also are encouraging couples before you get married to know your sickling status. Okay. And the reason is just not necessarily because if you are both AS, you cannot get married. No, we've gone past that. Now we have the ability to have two AS persons get together. We take the man's sperm, take the woman's egg, fertilize to form the embryos, and test the embryos to see those that are not sickling, and then we use those ones to help the woman to get pregnant. So being AS necessarily is no longer a reason for you to say, no, you can't get married.
So how do the lining health conditions actually affect family planning?
So for us to decide which method of family planning would be suitable for you, we need to know your general state of health. Some would work for you, some are not advisable. That's why it's important to know.
But when you look at, let's say, our environment, let's say Accra, do people actually really come to you for these advices?
I think you know the answer.
Tell us.
So they don't. So which is why interventions like this would create the necessary awareness that as part of the financial planning, where are we going to stay? Let's also have that discussion about your health, your well-being, and then plan the family somehow ahead.
Right. So is this what we call the pre-conception counseling?
So this is a part of it. Now, preconception generally just talks about a set of interventions that we put in place with the aim of having a healthy pregnancy, and then a healthy pregnancy and favorable pregnancy outcome.
Right.
Okay. And again, so during the preconception discussion, preconception care, we want to check the man. What work do you do? What are your social characteristics? Do you smoke? Do you take alcohol? Are you on any medications? Do you have any medical conditions which can affect the quality of your sperm, that can affect your child?
Yeah.
On the woman, what's the woman's age? What's your blood pressure? What's your weight? How are your blood sugars, your cholesterol? Okay. Do you have any problems with your hormones, with your uterus that can be in the way of getting pregnant or make pregnancy complicated? So we check all these things. A lot of women may need some medication for a variable number of months before they conceive, just so to optimize the pregnancy journey and the outcome. For instance, if the woman is hypertensive, okay, and she's on some medications that are controlling the blood pressure, at the time she's not planning to get pregnant, no problem. But some of the high blood pressure medications are not safe in early pregnancy. And so when you are on that and you're planning to get pregnant, during a preconception care session, we're going to say, okay, it's a good thing you have come, medicine A or B does not go well, it might cause abnormal formation of the baby. So let's switch you off that and put you on something which is safer. You know, stuff like that. And your weight, maybe your weight, when we check what we call the BMI is too high, it's likely to make you develop diabetes during the pregnancy, or high blood pressure, or preeclampsia. And so let's have a plan. Shared about this amount of weight with all the support with the dietitian, with the physical exercise, so that we can get this optimal weight before we begin the journey of pregnancy. Stuff like that, you know. Or somebody's diabetic.
Yes.
Some people are diabetic, they don't even know. Again, like we said, they don't show any symptoms on your face. Silent, okay? And so it is during the preconception care discussion that we can check your blood sugar. So, ooh, your blood sugars are high. Either it was known already, or this is the time we are diagnosing it. If the blood sugar is high at the time of conception, it leads to major, we call it congenital defect, abnormal formation of the baby. Very often you form a baby with no head, or with heart problems, or limb problems, and they are the commonest, okay, because the woman's blood sugars are too high at the time of conception. Somebody's already a known diabetic. She thinks she's trying to conceive and she stopped taking the medication. The sugars go high. She gets a baby with all these problems, which can be all avoidable if we spend time to discuss this at the stage of preconception. And like I said, some women are a bit advanced in age. They may need some vitamins to improve the quality of the eggs a little bit before conception.
All right. Okay. Doc, I'm just going to stop you right there because we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, this is Before You Say I Do, and today we're having a conversation on family planning and health matters. So before we actually went on the break, we were talking about the pre-conception counseling.
Correct.
Yeah, and why it's very important. So Doc, moving on, you know, in the setting that we are, which is Africa, which is West Africa, which is very patriarchy oriented.
Sure.
You know, most of the time, a lot of people say, oh, when the woman is old, she cannot give birth to healthy babies, which you have said that it happens in some conditions and because of the quality of the egg. Now, let's talk about the quality of the sperm, because we hear people say, especially men say, oh, men can give birth at any time. Woman, you don't have time on you, but man can give birth to many women, and give birth to many children with many women. Let's talk about the quality of the sperm.
Why are you making that faces when you're talking about the men?
Because the women have suffered a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point. So it is true. Now let's establish that even though men continue to make sperms throughout their life, above the age of 45, the quality of the sperms also decline in men. Okay, and so typically, if the man is 45 years and above, what we call time to conception reduces.
Oh, just like the egg declines. Yeah, the quality of egg declines too.
Yes. So it's not exclusively a matter of the woman. And so when the man in that age bracket is also coming up for preconception care, we check the sperm. There are a few things we look at: the number of sperm cells that the man produces, how well they look. Right. We need a percentage that should have the normal appearance. The normal sperm has a head, has a long neck, and a very long tail. But some sperms will come and they have 2 heads or 2 tails or no head.
2 heads. Sorry,
abnormal.
So can it have babies with 2 heads?
Some can lead to abnormal conception. So we check these things, and then if there are problems, we correct it. But generally, if the man is older, then there's a place for some vitamins as well to improve the quality of the sperms.
Just like the woman.
Just like the woman. And then, when we find that there are problems with the sperm, we're increasingly realizing that men who have difficulty or challenges with infertility tend to have a lot of other major medical problems. And some of it are a result of some of the cardiovascular problems, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, or what we call autoimmune problems.
Yeah, autoimmune disease.
Yes,
yeah.
And so if a man has been diagnosed of something wrong with the sperm, it shouldn't end there. We need to probe further.
Right.
Because there's some research that just says that men with infertility have a slightly increased risk of dying younger. And it's because of these things.
Wow.
And what it means is not to scare you, but for us to take the next step to probe and look for these things. If there are, then we can put interventions in place.
Wow.
So that we don't just focus on treating you for infertility, you're able to have babies, and then a few years you're gone. That shouldn't be fair.
Yeah. Wow. Everyone watching, I hope you take your preconception counseling very seriously. Don't just say, oh, we want babies and then start making babies. Please try and take this seriously. Now, let's talk about contraception. Obviously, it's one of the essential aspects to family planning.
That is true.
So, take us through, what is contraception and what kind of contraceptions are there out there?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, it's an essential part of family planning. Contraception means what we are doing to prevent unwanted pregnancies.
Okay.
Because there is no reason why in this day and age the couple should conceive when they don't really, don't want it.
Yeah, when it's not planned.
When it's not planned. And unfortunately, some still get pregnant, unwanted pregnancy, and they go to have an unsafe abortion, which leads to all sorts of complications, including the woman losing their life. That should not be. That should not be. And so contraception provides the opportunity to prevent the pregnancy until you are ready. Now, we're able to prevent the pregnancy through various means. We say some are natural. Natural means that when you're able to predict the time you ovulate.
Yes.
And you predict that by knowing the length of your menstrual cycle. If, for instance, your cycles are 28 days,
or 29,
if it's 28, the woman would always ovulate about 14 days before the next period. So if your cycle is 28 days, and which I say majority of women have 28-day cycle, that means they would ovulate around day 14. So you avoid unprotected sex 3 days before, 3 days after. Okay. Then Because if you had unprotected sex, you said I ovulate day 14, and day 13 you have unprotected sex, the sperms will hang around in the system.
Like 3 days or something like that. And still,
exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So you count 3 days back, 3 days, and that's the natural one, okay? That does not involve the use of any medication. You just need to be familiar with your cycle.
Yeah. And that doesn't involve the pull-out.
No, that's different.
Right.
So if your cycle is 30 days, it means you're going to ovulate 14 days before 30.
Right.
So 30 minus 14 is 16. So your ovulation is around day 16. So 3 days before, 3 days after. If your cycle is short, 25 days, it means you are going to be ovulating around day 11.
Yeah.
So you don't go with a blanket rule of day 14, you'll get pregnant very soon. You need to know your cycle.
You said you'll get pregnant.
Yeah, you will.
Very soon. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, I think it's important that people use, apps to help them.
Yes.
Like,
but the thing is, some of the majority of the apps are formatted on a 28-day cycle. So you need to use the app that accommodates your specific cycle length.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that can predict it for you.
Right.
Sometimes when you come to family planning clinic, we give you the women the beads. And with the beads, when it is red, when you come on the red beads, it's a time to abstain, stuff like that.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another natural one is what you call the pull-up. We call it coitus interruptus.
Yeah.
But that is not very effective.
True.
Because the reason is, during sexual intercourse, the man is supposed to withdraw when he's about to ejaculate. But we realize that majority of the time, by the time the man feels he's about to ejaculate, a little bit of the semen have come out already.
Right.
And they are even very rich in sperm cells. So you think you have pulled out or withdrawn, but active sperms have gone already.
Eesh.
So it has a higher failure rate.
Wow.
Right. And then we have what we call the lactation amenorrhea method. Lactation means you're making breast milk.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when the woman gives birth and she's breastfeeding exclusively and breastfeeding the baby on demand day and night, there's one hormone which is making the milk to flow, and that hormone naturally suppresses the woman's ovulation. So for so long as she's breastfeeding exclusively and on demand day and night, she's not going to be ovulating, so she's not going to get pregnant for that entire period. The moment she starts introducing complementary feeding, that cycle is broken.
Oof.
So it's only good for the time you're breastfeeding and exclusive breastfeeding. Okay, so that's what most people will benefit from the 6 months they are doing exclusive breastfeeding.
That's a lot of time to enjoy yourself. 6 months.
It is. It is. Then we move away from the natural ones and we have what we call the modern forms of contraception. So we could use hormonal stuff or non-hormonal, right? So the non-hormonal ones include things like the condoms. And we have the male condoms and the female condoms. And that's quite straightforward. So each time the couple wants to engage in sexual intimacy, they get a condom. Now, the condoms need to be handled carefully because a lot of the time, during the time of removal, people spill the semen and it defeats the whole purpose. So when you go get a condom, you need, next time we have to demonstrate how the condom is done properly. Right. So the female and the male condom. The other non-hormonal is the use of the intrauterine device.
That's the IUD?
The IUD. The IUD has a device. We have two types. One is non-hormonal. We call the copper one.
The copper one.
So if you imagine this as the inside of the uterus. So the copper IUD looks like this. It's T-shaped like that. So we insert it inside the uterus. And it's there. So for so long as this is there, you cannot get pregnant. Only 1 out of 1,000 women will get pregnant in a year, and that's extremely low failure rate. And when that happens, that pregnancy is not likely to find space here. So those pregnancies tend to be in the tube.
In the tubes?
Okay. So establish that this prevents unwanted pregnancy in 999 women in a year. 1 out of 1,000 may get pregnant. If that happens, the pregnancy is most likely to be in a
That's
tube.
the ectopic.
Ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah, and that has to go out.
That has to be removed. And so if you are on the copper IUD and you miss your period, promptly come for let's check. Is there a pregnancy? Is it ectopic? Then we can deal with it. Sometimes, once we detect it early, just some injection will take care of it without you having the need for surgery. The main thing about this is that when we put it there, for the first 3 or so months, the womb will be trying to push it out. Okay, so it gives a little bit of cramping for the first few months. The womb does that, it gets tired and it stops, and you're good.
Because it's a foreign object, obviously.
Yes, because it's foreign, It also makes the woman bleed a little longer. So assuming your cycles, you were bleeding for 3 days, it might go about 4 or 5 days after you've put this in. And that's no problem. Once you know, you anticipate, and that's it. Okay. Then we have another type of the IUD, which is hormonal. And that suppresses further bleeding. So that has the advantage of making you bleed less, but pretty much the same thing. Okay, but that is hormonal. Then the other hormonal is what we call the implants. The implants, we have it as tiny rods. You can see how tiny this is. So hold on, don't be afraid.
Okay.
Yes.
It's actually very light.
Yes,
too.
and so this has got hormones.
When you say rod, it sounds like a metal, but
it's not. It's
actually
plastic,
like plastic
gel, right?
Yeah.
So we insert this underneath the skin here.
Right.
Right. So when we put in one there, it releases tiny bits of the hormone every day. When we put one, it can take care of you for up to 3 years.
Right.
When we put two, it can be there for up to 5 years. But anytime you are ready to have a baby, we take it out.
Take it out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same thing as that.
Yes.
When you're ready.
When you're ready. We can fix it today, next week, Monday, you want it out, we take it out.
Okay.
Right. Good. And so those are the hormonal ones. Then we have the oral pills that you take. And that has to be taken every day.
Yeah.
So you take the pills every day and as much as possible at about the same time for consistency.
Wow, about the same time. 7 o'clock every morning.
That's
7
the
o'clock
thing.
every morning. If you miss it, you're going to get pregnant.
That's it. Especially, so the pills, there are 2 types. We have the combined pills and we have the progesterone only pills. And they have the biggest challenge when it comes to timing. So when you're on the pill, you have to be consistent. Okay. Then we have the injectable forms where we give the injection to the woman. Every 1 month, you take 1 shot. Or the longer lasting one, which you take once every 3 months. Okay. And these are the basic ones. Then in terms of the men, we have what we call the surgical ones, right? The surgical ones in the men, we just block the pipe that connects the testes to the penis so that the sperm that you produce cannot travel through to get ejaculated. Then in terms of the woman, we tie the tubes, and then those are permanent.
Right.
But if for some reason you've done all these and in future you still want to have babies, then we're able to help you with some of the IVF interventions.
Hey, please, you have to make up your mind. You really have to make up your mind.
Otherwise, you go on any of the reversible methods.
All right, so before we go, what advice would you, what final advice would you actually give to couples out there when it comes to family planning?
Family planning is great. It helps you take control over your life. It helps you plan your life, manage your finances, manage your children, their growth, their schooling, plan generally. So you can go back to school, advance your career, and then have a life without unnecessary stress. And there are various methods, so everybody will have what will fit their needs based on your medical background, based on your health status. And so there is no reason this day and age to go on having unprotected sex when you are not planning and you have unwanted pregnancies and you are burdened with the care of having to think about pregnancy terminations and unfortunately going the wrong way to get it and having complications.
Right.
So let's all seek family planning, and the services are available, readily available.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So we've been talking to Dr. Promise Sefoga on the topic family planning, health matters. And he's actually a consultant obstetrician, gynecologist, and also a fertility specialist at Shape Healthcare Medical Center, and also a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School. In case you want to reach out to the Shape Healthcare Specialist Medical Center, all you need to do is call the number 0302 631 880. 0302 631 880. You can reach him right there. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I hope to see you on the next episode. This has been Before You Say I Do, and my name is Chris Carter. Bye-bye.